Hello, I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York. Welcome to One to One. Each week, we address issues of timely and timeless concern with newsmakers and the journalists to report on them, with artists, writers, scientists, educators, social scientists, government leaders. We speak with each one to one. I'm delighted to welcome Michelle Anderson, Dean of the City University of New York's School of Law. The school has just moved into an extraordinary new campus in Long Island City, but its values and goals remain the same: to be the premier law school for public interest law in the nation. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here.
So as I said, the school bills itself as a premier law school for public interest law in the nation. What is it that you do that merits that title?
Well, the entire program, most law schools have a public interest program, an individual public interest program, but the entire law school curriculum at CUNY Law is focused on developing the skills and values of a public interest lawyer. Our motto is law in the service of human needs, and we try to allow that to infuse everything in the curriculum, from the pedagogy to the clinical programs, which are extraordinary at CUNY Law, to the work we do to support students after law school as well. So public interest really means it's about service to the community. It's about a focus in particular on those who are poor, those who have not had access to legal services. That's the focus of the work that the students are engaged in and the faculty is engaged in.
As opposed to going to a New York law firm and earning gobs of money.
That's right, that's right. Some of our students do that, but it is the rare student that does that. In fact, more students from CUNY Law, a greater percentage of students from CUNY Law, enter public interest and public service work than any other law school.
Something like 70%?
Yes.
Okay. So how many students do you have, and what are the demographics of your student body?
We have a very diverse campus. We have about 450 students. More than 45% are students of color. More than 45%, or about 45%, are actually first or second generation immigrants. So we have a real commitment to serving the immigrant community and to allowing students to go back into their communities and serve their communities once they graduate.
And something like 60% are women, correct?
Yes.
Is that in keeping with, is that different from other law schools, or have law schools moved in that direction?
Law schools have become more egalitarian in terms of the admissions process, in terms of gender over the years, but it is an unusual law school that has the percentage of women that our law school has. Routinely, 2/3 of the student body are female at CUNY Law. And I think the reason for that is primarily our mission. Our mission is to help diversify the legal profession. We have a real commitment to diversity and also to graduate outstanding public interest and public service attorneys. So the folks who are attracted to our mission and attracted to the law school are people who want to work and live and be part of a diverse community and want to go out and serve their own communities.
And your students also tend to be students who have worked for a little while, as opposed to students who are coming directly out of college.
That's right. We've been recognized by the Princeton Review as being one of the most welcoming campuses for older students. And we have students often with rich work experience before they come to law school. It makes for richer dialogues in the classroom, and it's a real virtue of the school.
How many faculty, and what percentage are full-time or part-time?
The faculty, well, it depends on how you count. You know that at every school. It depends on who you count and how you count, but it's about 45 faculty. And overwhelmingly, they're full-time. We have very few part-timers or adjuncts, unlike many schools that very much rely on adjunct faculty to teach the bread and butter courses. Our full-time tenure track faculty are teaching the bread and butter courses, and they're teaching the clinical practice courses. So it's something we're proud of.
And of course, you have the advantage of having a much lower tuition than a lot of law schools. I was checking Columbia, and this is the total cost of tuition, room and board, is about $74,000 a year. I think about maybe like $58,000 maybe is tuition, whereas your tuition and fees, not including living expenses, about $7,000 for New York State students and about $11,000 for out-of-state students. A big difference. A big difference.
Now, I think those numbers, I'm not sure, we're at about $12,000 for a year at this point for in-state. Still, that is so much less than the average, both of private schools, private law schools and public law schools. We've been ranked as having one of the lowest tuitions across the country and having the least tuition increase over the last 10 years, where you really saw a dramatic increase in law school tuitions across the country. What it means is, in a very practical sense, is that students can graduate without crushing debt, and they can actually pursue their dreams of engaging in lower paid practice, because they don't have the debt burden that one has at many private law schools and at most public law schools as well.
Now, I mean, obviously you have some of the standard law school courses, your torts and contracts and legal method and
I teach
constitutional law.
criminal law.
And criminal law.
Yep.
But, but you talked about the emphasis on clinical work. You actually have, and do students do clinical work every year? I know it's required in their third year, but do they do some kind of clinical stuff all 3 years?
Well, we begin with a lawyering sequence where students have very rich lawyering courses in the first year and in the second year. And those lawyering courses involve simulations. Now, at some campuses, their clinical work is simulations, but for CUNY Law, our clinical work is about providing actual legal services to people who would otherwise not have access to legal services under the supervision of a trained attorney and a professor in our clinical program. Our clinics are mandatory at many schools, probably most schools at this point have clinical programs, but students have to compete to get into those programs. At CUNY, we don't think it makes a lot of sense to graduate students who have not had actual experience serving clients, particularly when we expect that they will go into serving impoverished communities. And so our clinics are mandatory, everybody has access to them, and a number of students take multiple clinics through their time.
You also offer concentration. Now, when I was in law school, everybody basically took the same thing. There were electives, and maybe some people would take more business courses than others, but basically it was the same curriculum and no concentration. But you do have concentrations at your...
Yes.
Does every student have a concentration?
No. The concentrations are very intensive courses that are like externship courses. We have a health law concentration and an equality concentration where students go off and do work for outside organizations and then come back and reflect and do the kind of work that requires them to figure out ways of engaging in best practices in serving their clients. So those two concentrations are also part of the broader third-year clinical program that students engage in.
When I graduated from law school, I mean, I know that at that time, and it may have changed a few decades later, if you graduated from the national law schools, you got a great grounding in case law, in legal principles, how the law has evolved over time. But when you graduated, you did not know how to do anything practical. You did not know how to draw up a will. You did not know how to handle a house closing. You did not know how to do any of that stuff.
Right.
I assume it's different from your students when they come out.
It is.
Actually do something.
Well, the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching and education engaged in a study of law schools across the country and came out with a very critical book calling law schools to task, calling the Legal Academy to task for failure, for exactly the failures you're talking about, indicating that law schools were good at teaching critical thinking, but not good at teaching practical skills. And they listed a number of schools as exceptions, and CUNY was listed more often than any other school. CUNY really tries to marry theory and practice and have ethics be part of that dialogue between theory and practice. What it means is that when all the students have real practice experience and they graduate, we feel like they're in a much better position to go out and to serve real clients.
You also, I mean, you actually have a course you talked about in lawyering where you teach them how to set up a law office, right?
Yes, yes. And we have support for students after they graduate that is unique, that no other law school has the kind of launchpad program that we have, where we support students in housing court who are delivering services to people who otherwise would not have lawyers, and when they face eviction or failure to pay or any number of other circumstances in housing court, that helps to launch their career and give them a real area of extraordinary need, particularly here in New York City. And it gives them contacts within the community when they're setting up their own practice. We also have an incubator program where we bring students into a small law office and teach them how to set up their own solo practice and small firm practice. It really is a soup to nuts operation. It is how to, we do more for students before they come into law school as well as after they graduate from law school.
So your students could actually graduate from law school and hang up a shingle, as they say.
And our students do.
Okay.
They are very excited to do that. Often they have a particular area that they want to specialize in and serve the communities, whether it's immigration law, family law, housing. These are all areas of critical need. And the economic crisis has only exacerbated that need here in New York City and across the country.
We're going to take a short break, then we'll be back with more with Michelle Anderson, Dean of the CUNY Law School, after the following message.
Ma, guess what? I went back to college. No, I didn't quit my job. I'm finishing my degree with the CUNY Online Bachelor's in Business. I interact online with real City University of New York faculty on a schedule that fits my busy life. Ma, you should look who's teaching at CUNY. And it all leads to a high-quality Bachelor of Science degree in business. I can attend class anywhere, anytime. Yes, Mom, even at your house Friday night for dinner.
The CUNY Online Baccalaureate. Get back to business.
Welcome back to One to One. I'm Sheryl McCarthy of the City University of New York, and I'm talking with Dean Michelle Anderson of the CUNY School of Law. A recent law school graduate told me that the bar review courses, prep courses, can cost up to $4,000.
Yes.
That's incredible. I'm wondering why law schools don't just routinely offer a course that prepares their graduates for the bar exam.
Well, increasingly law schools are starting to offer courses that are focused on the topics tested on the bar exam in the last semester of law school. So we have a Mastering Core Doctrine course, which is a very intensive course focused on the kinds of topics that are tested on the bar that really begin to prepare students for taking both the multiple choice and the essay questions in the subject areas tested on the New York bar.
When I watched the video on your website, a number of your graduates said they felt that the law school was like a family. And, you know, someone said, when I arrived, I immediately knew that I belonged here. That wasn't my law school experience. It didn't feel like a family when I was in law school, but that seems to be rather unique.
Well, we're trying to do something unique in the Legal Academy. We're not trying to be a law school for everybody. We're trying to be a law school for people who are committed to using the law as a tool of social justice. And we're trying to have exceptional programs that prepare students to do that. And when you have a group of people that are all on the same page about why they want to be there, it changes the dynamic of law school itself. We still have the Socratic method. We still force students to shape and train their minds in a way that makes them very analytically precise. But in addition to doing that, we want them to feel like they're part of a community engaged in a larger project. Mm-hmm. And that means they have a different feeling about their colleagues.
Is there less of the kind of competition among students that you would get at other law schools, do you think?
Yes, the students talk about being surprised at their friends at other law schools, hearing the horror stories about the competitive nature of law school at many law schools. At CUNY, the students share notes. For instance, the Hurricane Sandy happened and it devastated a number of students' lives and made it more complicated and difficult for them to get to campus. Immediately, the student government started working to allow students to share notes in different courses. We immediately started taping the classes. I think that concern for student welfare is a very important part of our community.
Recently, there have been a lot of questions asked about the value about a law degree these days. Law firms have been closed, scaling back, laying lawyers off. City and state governments aren't hiring lawyers the way they used to. Lawyer salaries are down in some places. The Wall Street Journal recently published an article saying that 9 months after graduating, only 55% of the 2011 law graduates had jobs. And a number of law schools, including New York Law School, have been sued by alumni who say the schools made false claims about, their employability after law school. What do you think of those lawsuits?
Those lawsuits are very difficult and a painful indicia of a market for legal services that I think has fundamentally changed. We have seen a scale back in large law firms. We've seen a scale back in the kinds of hiring that they engage in. We've also seen a similar scaling back in legal services, traditional legal services organizations, medium-sized firms, smaller firms. And I think that these changes are probably not just a market correction that will go the other direction in a number of years. I think they may be indicative of fundamental shifts in how legal services are delivered in the United States. And we've responded. We've tried to respond in very specific ways. Supporting our students to think about creative ways of partnering with their colleagues to set up small firms. Supporting our students to get internships and clerkships, which help them get jobs, providing them with the launchpad work that gives them expertise and contacts in the housing, in the field of landlord-tenant work. And we've talked with our students very candidly about how the market for legal services has shifted and how we all need to be responsive to that.
Do you think there are too many law schools at this point?
That's a really hard question that's difficult for a dean to answer politically because it...
Yes, there are too many, but get rid of this one, this one, this one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, here's one thing we know. The downturn in the economy has meant more and more people without legal services, moderate and low-income people and impoverished people without legal services that they desperately need. So the kinds of skills that we're developing at CUNY Law, the kinds of students and the commitments they have to engage in work for those very people, we have a real strong match with the needs of the community. And that's one of the reasons why CUNY Law, I think, is such a vital and important institution, because we're not aiming to send students to the same place that other law schools are aiming to send them. We really want them to be able to respond to the crises that happen in the community.
How are your students, your graduates, doing in terms of getting in jobs, and where do they go?
They go, traditionally, we've gone to legal services, legal aid. A number of our students become prosecutors. They work for the government. They work for a whole range of nonprofit organizations, Gay Men's Health Crisis, Sylvia Rivera Law Project, any number of groups supporting and devoted to immigrants, battered women, the transgender community, a whole range of places. And our students continue to have jobs in those places. We also have a number of students who set up small firms themselves, join small firms, or work to set up small firms, and we've tried to support and develop that work through our Incubator Program.
When you came to the law school in 2006, I believe one of your mandates was to get the school accredited, which you did. But a concern in the last couple of years has been that the pass rate of your graduates on the bar review exam has dropped a couple of years. I think it's been below 75% the last couple of years, which could pose problems for future accreditation. Why do you think that has happened, and what are you doing about it?
Well, we just got the results from the July 2012 bar, and they were the highest in the law school's history.
Really?
83.5% of our students who took the New York bar for the first time passed, which is just terrific and definitely the direction we need to go. We instituted a number of changes to support our students getting through the bar. One of the things that we did was to develop a bar mentoring program. And this is where we literally pair each individual graduate with a faculty member or with an alum, each of which has been trained specifically in how to teach them, how to do essays, how to keep up their moral support, how to help them to structure the kinds of intensive studying you need to sustain over 2 or 3 months to successfully pass the bar. We instituted that mentoring program this year, and I think it really contributed. Another thing we do is that we give students grants, out-and-out grants, to support themselves from the time they graduate in mid-May till the end of July when the bar happens. Our students tend to come from less wealthy backgrounds, and when we have found that a number of students who weren't passing the bar were those who didn't have any means of financial support, and so they had to take a job at a bar or at a Starbucks or somewhere else. And we just said, look, it doesn't make sense. We need to give students the money to support themselves through that period of time. I don't know of any other law school that does that, but we see it as a crucial element to supporting our students from the time they come in through the bar exam and to help them get jobs.
We've got about 2 minutes left. Why don't you tell us about your new campus in Long Island City?
Well, it's a beautiful campus. It's a LEED Gold certified building, which means it's environmentally friendly. It is built with post-consumer recycled materials. Everything that's new in the building is actually recycled. It runs on rainwater. Or it recycles rainwater and runs on wind power. And it's a terrific building that's also beautiful, and it has light streaming through the sides. So we're very proud of it. And it's finally a place where the work that we do with the top 5 clinical program that we deliver that's been ranked in the top 5 in the nation, one of the most diverse communities that the National Law Journal just came out that we were number 2 in the nation for diversity, both for faculty and students. This is a place of beauty that reflects our core commitments, and we're proud of it.
So what would you say to a young person who's considering going to law school when they came to you for advice? I mean,
I would ask them what kind of law you're interested in and why you want to go to law school. I think historically, law school has been a default place for people who were smart but not smart in math. Or not as smart in the sciences, or not oriented that way. I don't think it should be a default. I don't think
people who really wanted to be poets, but I want to earn a living, so I'm going to go to law school.
That's not a good reason. I think the world needs more poets. And the world needs people who are committed to do public interest work. And if they're committed to that, I think they should come to CUNY Law School, because this is the place where we do that kind of work.
You heard it here. We're out of time. I want to thank Dean Michelle Anderson of the CUNY School of Law. For the City University of New York and 1-to-1, I'm Sheryl McCarthy. If there are any people you'd like to hear from or topics you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can write to me at CUNY TV, 365 Fifth Avenue, New York, New York, 10016, or you can go to the website at cuny.tv and click on Contact Us. I look forward to hearing from you.